What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at SOFI Technologies, ticker symbol SOFI, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of tomorrow's trading day, Friday, February 2nd. Well, SOFI stock here today down about 10 cents a share, 1.28%. That's nothing for SOFI. It's a very volatile name. We got a little bit of a creep up last night's after hours and this morning's pre-market. Then we got a fade off the open, recovering a bit, and now grinding a little bit higher, a few cents higher here in the after hours. You know, it's always important to understand with after hours movement that we have to take it with a grain of salt, even if it's in your favor, even if it's going against your current sentiment. The volume is incredibly low. Okay, so it's important to keep that in mind. Let's look here at the 5 minute chart and take a look at the volume across these moves here. So the fade this morning, what's interesting is that the beginning and end of the fade had more reasonable volume. The bottoming of the fade had quite a bit of intraday volume for the time of day that it was. The fade itself, not really a ridiculous amount of volume. Like yesterday, heading into the close, we saw quite a bit more of a high volume fade off. Not entirely the case today. Which, I mean, you know, listen, if you're a bull on SOFI, like, I'll take it, right? You don't want to see really high volume fades if you're long, and vice versa. You want to see lower volume moves against your sentiment, super high volume moves, or as high volume as possible, when it's moving in your favor. But let's take a quick look here at the EMAs, the exponential moving averages here on the 5 minute. You know, I'm sure we saw some traders fading this 50 period EMA here on the 5 minute chart. You know, for me, like doing a whole lot of testing with many different strategies, I've found that style of trade to not have significant edge. If you guys do want to come trade with us, scalp setup alerts, swing trade setup alerts, unusual options activity alerts, which are all human verified by me every day, by the way, and platinum one-on-one. I'll leave the link for the Roensch Capital Gold server in the pinned comment. Hope to see you come hang out. I think it's a great place to potentially expedite the process, and obviously trading is not an easy profession to really get the hang of, so anything to expedite I think is useful. Let's move on here to the 30-minute time frame and take a look here. So you can see here the 50 period and the 200 period have crossed. Not that in and of itself is meaningful. I don't like to look at those. What I do look at, though, is what is the psychological self-fulfilling prophecy implications of that occurring. Well, now looking at the 30 minute, if you are bullish, we need to reclaim that 50 period, that white line, right? Make our way up over $8 a share again, and reclaim that gray line, which is the 200 day. The good news here on the 30 minute chart is that, you know, to reclaim that 200 day, we're less than 3.5% away. So SOFI has been incredibly volatile as of late. That's not much of a move for this stock in the recent past. But remember here, the 30 minutes is just one factor. We're always looking at multiple time frames, trying to get as many things to line up as possible to then make our decision. Not just looking for what we want to see, but looking for things that everyone's going to be seeing, and then we can make an educated decision on how to position ourselves or manage our risk if necessary. So here on the 4-hour chart, you have the 50 period, which is by far the most relevant right now. That 200 period is currently up right about 855. The 50 period, though, sitting right about $7.98, $8 a share. If you're a bull, I mean, quite obviously, we're looking for about 1.5%, 2% move to reclaim that 50 period here on the 4-hour chart. But if you're a bear, you want to see that test and reject and fade off of it as hard as possible. Bulls, though, we want to see that reclaim and start treating that as a support once again. Because here on the 4-hour chart, that would open up a pretty obvious open sky potential setup to at least 8.25, potentially up to 850, 860 in that case. Let's take a look now at, you know, arguably the most important chart here of the video, and that's the daily chart. Why is it the most important? Everybody's watching this chart. Everyone's watching the daily with the 50-day moving average, the white line, and the 200-day moving average, the gray line. So listen, we're currently sitting just below the 200-day moving average, the gray line, okay? Ideally, if you are a bear, let's start with bears here tonight. If you're a bear, you want to see this continue to act as a resistance. We've only been beneath it for really a day or two, okay? I'm more of a 3 to 5 trading day kind of guy for confirmation on the daily chart. If you're a bear, you are ideally looking for that to hold as a resistance level and fade to the downside. But if you're a bull, listen, that 200 day needs to hold here. Okay, meaning we need to stay above like 785, 790 a share ideally. Ideally, really get above $8 a share and head up toward that 50-day moving average right around 8.25. I mean, listen, it's not difficult to see that in the recent past, when SOFI gets above the 50-day moving average and holds for 3 or more days, you can see we didn't hold back here, right? When it gets above the white line, the 50-day moving average, and holds for 3 or more trading days, it tends to like that. The bulls tend to take that as a sign, and arguably the bears also tend to take that as a sign of discouragement in their case. Okay, and I think you'd end up seeing that same kind of effect if we ended up holding downside below the 200-day for 3 or more trading days, just vice versa. So that's really ideally what I'm looking for here. Now, if you are an options trader or just looking at the stock, I like to track this even if I just own shares, but especially if I own or I'm looking to play options on our particular name. Implied volatility has dumped off. So if you owned options in the last week or two, you've likely experienced what is called IV crush, right? Where a lot of your value gets sucked out of your contracts, but not due to the stock movement. This is the factor that influences the value of your contracts through the Greek vega, and that comes from implied volatility, this graph right here. So you can see that it tanked off. Now that's good for options sellers, bad for those who bought options, but as it comes lower and lower compared to the recent past, it opens up some potential opportunity for new options buyers to experience some IV pump if we end up seeing that return to equilibrium. Okay, so always make sure you're watching implied volatility. It's very commonly overlooked and much more important than I think most people give credit to, which is, I really think it's a non-negotiable for being able to consistently make any money with options. It's very, very important. That goes for sellers and buyers, by the way. Here in the chain, we have a good sample size, 322,000 total contracts traded here today. 213,000 of those were calls, 109,000 of those were puts. So the overall call-put ratio leaning to the bullish side, okay, by quite a bit, over 200,000 compared to about 109,000, right? Now, interestingly, take a look at that delta, 0 to 20, right? This range right here. This gives us the short-term speculators. What are they thinking? 81,000 nearly calls in that 0 to 20 delta range compared to 39,000 puts. We're seeing more than double the short-term bullish speculation as we are the short-term bearish speculation. As always, though, this is just one factor. So whether it goes against your bias or confirms your bias, take the data with a grain of salt. But that's what the options traders are telling us here today, how they're feeling. Listen, if you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. By the way, leave a comment. Let me know what stocks you'd like to see me cover here in the near future. Even if it's just SOFI, that feedback helps out a lot. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.